Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the best basketball players in the entire existence of the human race. Since the Peach Baskets were set up in James Naismith's indoor PE class, there have been well over 14 billion people who are born, live life, vacated from life, and are living at this current moment. Of those, 4,783 have had the opportunity to suit up for the premier place of ball, the NBA. If we take into account the roughly 50 years from basketball to the formation of the NBA, and that about 50% of the said population is male, then that's 0.0001% of the available pool of our species. There have been more people struck by lightning. This is the threshold just for the fringe borderline player, the James Currys of the world. That's sensational enough, clearly, but not to be a fringe player but a fringe all-star, that's statistically ridiculous. Seeing as 24 are selected for the All-Star game, a borderline All-Star means that you're within the top 30, meaning that you're better than 94% of the league, or in the top 6%. And again, this is the human improbability matrix that we're talking about here. And to add on to that, being in the top 6% in 2020 is far different than in 1968. So let's say that if you're in the top 6% of NBA basketball players in 2020, then you're in the top 3% all time. Based off of this information, Spencer Dinwiddie, in terms of pure basketball ability in 70 years of humanity, is a 1 in 29 million talent. You're more likely to be anointed a saint than to be as good as Spencer is. So yeah, he's uniquely skilled at one sport. That's somewhat the prerequisite to me making millions of dollars, as these athletes so earn in the league. Basketball in America is the most talked about extracurricular nearly everywhere in the world. And with that influence comes cash. The collective bargaining agreement between the employer, or broker according to Spencer, the NBA, and the employees, the players, says that they're entitled to 51% of basketball-related income, or BRI, in their contracts. Basically all the revenue driven directly by the games. This allows for an enormous sum of money, a maximum of $210 million in 5 years, and a minimum of roughly $800,000 if able to hold a roster spot. Ever since the first contract was signed in 1946, all players have acquired their money the same way, a paycheck every 2 weeks. Naturally, then you do as you please with it. Some live extravagantly, some save, some do both. But Spencer decided to do the unheard of. He went into cryptocurrency. Now, if you've lived with internet access within the past 2 to 3 years, then you've heard of this, and it's always been associated with Bitcoin. But chances are you've seen it as confusing. But at its very core, it's not that complex. To get sort of a basic understanding of the cryptocurrency principle, let's use the United States dollar. If you've been through elementary school, you know that it's a form of currency, basically a way to acquire some sort of value. It's like a placeholder for something you want or acquire, such as an Xbox or a living place or food. Now let's take that dollar and make it completely digital. And not only that, let's say that there's only $5,000 ever produced. And instead of being exclusive to the United States, it's available to anybody with an internet connection. In the largest of nutshells, that's what cryptocurrency is. There's huge benefits behind a system like this, but the biggest one is that it's nearly impossible to be stolen from. There's a 1 in 100 trillion chance, that's 21 zeros, of being stolen from. This is because each dollar, or Bitcoin as we can call it now, is encrypted with a generated passcode that can only ever be known by the owner, and all transfers are made public within the system. In the very, very unlikely event someone steals from you, it's recorded for everybody on the platform to see, so you'll know who your thief is. Unless you get scammed.
Go onto your site and it's gonna tell you which address to load. Then you type that same address on a Bitcoin machine. If you put the right address, it should pop up green. Then from there you done with that Bitcoin machine.
And so now we look at Spencer Dinwiddie, the NBA's tech guy with a jumper. He's profoundly invested, enough to take a version of cryptocurrency and turn it into money he can take and make now. This process is known as tokenizing. Essentially what you're doing here is creating a new asset class, which is just a different form of currency, with the revenue you currently bring in. So to put that into context a little bit, imagine that KD sets up a service where you pay him $1,000 for a Kevin Durant coin. There's only 1,000 that are produced. Once everything is sold, KD promises that the value of the coin directly correlates with his current revenue. If his net worth is 10% more than the time you first bought it, then you can sell the coin for 10% more money, basically an investment in his performance. It's very, very similar to owning a stock. With cryptocurrency, its two most appealing features are its security and its efficiency. You can't be completely sure that your KD coin is safe, particularly if it's worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Since cryptocurrency takes note of all the transactions that are made, as long as you stay within the system, there's no issue. Unlike other platforms, the distributor, the KD, doesn't need to know who has the money. All they need to know is that the token is still in possession. The owners of the coin can exchange at their own discretion. Fans have been able to invest in a player's performance before. The most prevalent example is the Fantex company partnering with Arian Foster in 2013, where invested fans could buy shares of a player for $10, and the value of the share went up depending on how much Arian and the other signed athletes earned. But what Spencer is doing will be the first time that any professional athlete has ever tokenized a contract with their own resources, especially using cryptocurrency. This means that large sums of money can be invested without the complications of traditional stock exchange and with the security of the blockchain, where Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies operate on. Dream Fanshares, the name of the platform Spencer founded, is literally just that. Fans can buy pieces of Dinwiddie's contract on the blockchain, known as PAINTs, Professional Athlete Investment Tokens. This is what you call a debt instrument if you're an investor. You give money, hence the debt part, to another entity expecting them to pay you back with more money. That's what these PAINTs are, investments that will pay you back more money than what you put in. This benefits Spencer in at least two ways. First off, instead of relying on the 2-week paycheck, he gets all his money at once. Hear this phrase and hear it well. Money now is greater than money later. Money that you're planning to be paid isn't as valuable as money that you can have right now, for two major reasons. One, you can invest the money you have now to create more money. You can't do that with money you think that you're going to get. And two, the money that you have now is far more secure than the money that you're going to be acquiring in the future, as you can control where it goes. As Spencer says, there are a lot of signs that are pointing towards an economic recession like the one we had in 2008, maybe even more serious. At that point, you're simply not going to be able to make as much money with what you already have. Being able to invest money in places that are profitable now is far more efficient than waiting on a paycheck a year in the future. But it's not only a benefit to Spencer, it's a benefit to the investors. Not only do they get to place money into someone they enjoy watching, like Spencer, but they're secured by a guaranteed contract, meaning that there's little to no risk of not getting their money back. In the next 2 or so years, Spencer's guaranteed to make $34 million. No matter what happens to him on the courts, meaning that in the worst case scenario, investors aren't losing that much money, if any at all. Now, the last party that benefits, making this literally a win-win-win scenario, is the NBA. As Spencer says, the NBA is only a broker between the players and the fans. They only show the games. There's not nearly as much value in a team as there is in Antetokounmpo. If a Bucks logo drops onto the streets of St. Louis, nobody really cares that much. Take a picture or something with it. But if you bring Giannis in the middle of the streets, particularly if he's challenging people to one-on-ones, then you basically have mass hysteria. So the NBA just provides the value. They don't inherently possess it. But the best thing about that is that any engagement is good for them. As more people interact with the players, more people interact with the service. If Spencer allows fans to own some of his value, wouldn't they be willing to watch more Nets games? That's what you call active fan engagement, literally the heart of the league's value. But the NBA didn't see it that way. When Spencer held talks with the league office notifying them that he was announcing the plan, they straight up stopped him with an ultimatum. Either give up the project or have his contract terminated. Basically, they were saying if he went through with his plan, he would be kicked out of the league.
We took our time with it. We took 8 months to build it. We passed SEC regulations. We, shrunk it down to accredited investors. We said, look, we understand, we believe this is a complete class. We understand this is proof of concept, so we're going to be safe. We're going to pass every single regulation possible. We've read the CBA back and front. We understand we're not breaking it. Here, guys, look what we've built. We would just love for you guys to say, okay, yeah, do what you want. And they said no. And then we were like, but why? And they were just like, no. And I was like, why?
But no.
Like, why?
Yeah.
They're just like, no.
The but why of it all was eventually revealed to be a suspicion in gambling. The league thought the plan was violating the CBA because it included gambling elements. The main part where this was the problem was Dinwiddie's contract here, where he could either accept the about $13 million or sign a better contract. Obviously, the way he's playing right now, he'd sign a better contract and he'd be making way more money. But at the same time, the investors would be making more money as well. The league thought that this was some sort of betting. After weeks of deliberation, Spencer's team got rid of the clause and, after about 5 months, released it on January 13th. There's a major caveat, though. You know how Spencer was talking about those regulations, right?
Past SEC regulations.
A part of that means that this is only available to accredited investors. which means you need to either be a millionaire or making about $300,000 a year consistently. But it's sorta necessary. Spencer's final plan takes $13.5 million of his contract and creates it into 90 SD8s, as he calls it, tokens, meaning that one token is $150,000. So yeah, if you want to invest in this, it's gonna be a while until it's truly available to the fan. But watch out. Spencer's already said that dozens of athletes from the NBA and NFL have reached out to him, asking him about what he's doing, being curious about it themselves, which is exactly what he wanted. Spencer Dinwiddie is disrupting the contract game forever, and this is for the players' benefit. As he says in an interview with cryptocurrency guru Anthony Pompliano, he's just defining the blueprint. Once he succeeds in his own way, he'll let the trade out into the professional world and change athletes' finances forever. Thanks for watching.